I'm out this morning, kind of poking through the yards, going through, making the final call. I'm targeting all the hives that I originally flagged as we went through this last round. Flagged because they shown a few symptoms of being queenless, but I wanted to give them just a little bit more time just in case they were in that queen replacement mode. Some of them were obviously call-outs, but others were just on that line. So the yard is a little bit of a stir right now because I've shook out 3 colonies here. Drone layer, one robbed right out and the other one was, nothing going on. So I shook them out, so the yard's a little bit going, what the hell. But that's partly because I also don't have smoke with me because I forgot it back at the honey house. I'll be sure to bring it with me this afternoon. I'm also poking through, just taking a random assessment on the condition of my colony and the nest and where it's at. Taking mite washes and all this stuff, just trying to grasp what's going on within my colony and just if I have to do anything, what it has to be. I don't have a tripod with me, otherwise I'd show you inside, but I just poked down into this nest here and I'm looking at frames of eggs and young larvae. It's September 1st. This is extremely exciting for me. We're building this masterful winter nest. If we're laying eggs now, we're going to be seeing bees emerge in the back half of September, maybe even going into October. This is extremely exciting. There's going to be very well-defined young bees within my apiary going into winter. I haven't had this for a number of years now. We've been falling into this dearth, this heat, dryness, dearth in the fall, which has basically been in the late summer, which has basically been shutting my hives down, and my hives have been going in, just on the edge of being a little bit too old. So seeing eggs down here on the frames, seeing the bees taking those eggs into a larval state is extremely exciting. It's just showing that there is vigor, there is life, and there's promise and optimism within these colonies, which is developing this winter nest, just kind of slingshotting them into winter. I'm also looking for food. I pulled off all their honey and I give them a little bit of syrup back, just a gallon pail, and they could probably use a little bit more now just to rim that brood nest, right? So I'm considering maybe splashing a little bit more right across the apiary before we start bulk feeding. I don't want to bung this nest up yet. If she's got the ambition to build this winter nest, I want to hold just enough space in there for her to be able to dominate what she needs, and then I'll just lay that syrup to them and backfill them. I have to be extremely cautious here. I can't allow this ambition to get too far out of control. She's going to be laying all this brood, and if I'm going to be wintering these bees in singles, I have to make for damn sure that I have enough food within this box to be able to get them to April. So I got to be able to backfill this nest, and I'm going to need it. If they're building this winter nest and there's going to be empty space to fill going in October, I'm going to need a good October to be able to fill up the remainder of all this space as I restrict her and confine her and fill up all that space and kind of shut her down in a way. I might have to shut that queen down this year. We'll just have to see how long she goes into fall here laying eggs. So I'm not going to wait too long. Probably Labor Day we're going to start that next week. We're going to start bulk feeding. Just set out the feed and just start plugging up these nests. That brood nest will hold itself because it can't be filled because it's full of brood, right? So they're going to be able to maintain that little nest that they got going there. We're going to backfill as much as we can, and then as that last hatch emerges, we have to focus and get this box up to weight, and that's going to be October. We've had 2 terrible Octobers these last couple of years where we haven't been able to get opportunity to feed our bees. So it might be a little touch and go if we get another October like their last 2, but who knows, maybe we'll get a Indian summer here and get a nice drawn out feeding period. We kind of deserve one, I think. Right into middle October going on to November, just get some feed into these colonies. But we don't know. We don't know what's coming. So we have to make sure we get as much feed into these colonies through September as we can, just to be able to make sure that they have enough feed to get themselves through winter, and then just top them up through October. So that's kind of my strategy there. Let's look at this box of bees. Absolutely terrific. I'm ripping off tops, just taking a peek down, and it's just boxes of bees everywhere. These nests are just in terrific shape. I haven't seen a mite yet. Doesn't mean that they're not there. And that's one thing about a brood nest that extends itself like this. I'm going to have trouble maybe having her shut down, and I'm going to have trouble maybe targeting this nest with oxalic acid vapor later on to be able to target all those mites that are hiding on me in here. So it is a concern. It is a hidden problem that I'm going to have to deal with, which might mean that we might have to hold the bees out of the shed longer into November to make sure that we have this nest backfilled and shut down, no more brood, so that all those mites are exposed, and get them without oxalic acid before we put them into the shed, just to make sure that we fulfill that full treatment cycle that I've been working on these last few years. Either that, or if I start seeing mites pop up around here, if I start seeing them inch closer to my threshold, I'm going to have to drop strips down. And now is the time to do it, because they got to be in for about 45 days or so. And we need the bees to be somewhat active for those strips to work. So there's a lot of things we got to concentrate on right now to make sure that this nest sets up properly. The main thing is mites. You got to make sure that these hives don't have mites, and we got to be able to manage that according to what's happening inside that nest. And feed. I have to make sure that I get enough feed into these colonies, that they have enough to get to April. Whether or not I put supplement on right now, it's just kind of a bonus for the hives, just kind of jolting, just kind of energizing this nest a little bit, just giving them some bulk to be able to use. But they have pollen coming in still. It's just terrific. They have reserves within these nests, and they're using it. So that protein aspect isn't as strong as a factor as it's been over the last few years. Doesn't mean I'm not going to feed them the protein. I'm just going to continue on with my feeding regime. So those are just a few thoughts on what's going on now that we're taking a step out of the honey flow. The extracting house is still going as they finish up this last week. Hopefully get another 70.5 pulled out, and I'm going to concentrate on my yard just to make sure everything is where it should be. I've been through 7 yards now, and 4 of those yards are just perfect. They just had that perfect amount of syrup rimmed around the brood, actively brooding, and honey stores on the outside and such. 3 of those yards were light. 1 really light. Just, kind of caught me off guard. I think it's time for me to get out of la-la land here and, get really serious on making sure these hives are fed. So I'm going around, I'm going to feed everything. It's better to have just a little bit too much feed than not enough feed. They can manage that feed, they can push it out, manage that brood nest, as long as they don't plug them right up. But if they don't have any feed, then they just, they're out. So I gotta be a little sharper here, and I gotta quit pretending I know exactly what's going on, because I haven't been through the whole apiary for about 2 weeks now. So every yard's a little bit different. Every yard has a little bit different forage out there. Every yard has just a little bit different reserves inside of them because of the flows. So I have to make sure that I don't get caught on any starvation issues here as I try to manipulate the amount of feed that I give to my colonies. I'll be giving it to them in gallon pails still wasting my time just throwing a little bit on, just splashing it at them. And the yards that I'm not close to neighbors, I'm putting open feed, so I'm throwing a tote out and the girls can fight over it. And I'm going to get through all of them by this time tomorrow, and everything will have feed, will have available feed, and then I will be focusing on directing my attention towards bulking them up. So I'll be getting ready for that through the weekend. Shifting gears. Constantly shifting gears.